Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. This show is designed to highlight the work of philanthropic leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, a very interesting and very accomplished woman. Her name, Tina Flaherty. Tina is a former radio host, TV host. She's a businesswoman, philanthropist, and author. Let's all welcome Tina Flaherty. Tina, it is really a real pleasure to have you on the show today. And Tina, let's start with your beginnings. You grew up in Tennessee, and when you were very young, I think in college, you actually had a TV show. And for our audience, that's a very interesting thing because not too many people have a TV show when they're in college. And let us know a little bit about that now.
Well, all my life, I wanted a television show. I was always up on stage for something, whether it was winning the oratorical contest or the drama medal or something like that. But I very much wanted a spot on this daily dance party. So I figured I'll just be persistent and try to get it. So what I did was I sat in the lobby. I asked to speak to the man responsible for the show, but naturally he wouldn't see me. But that didn't stop me. I came back 27 times and I was known as that girl is here again. Finally, they let me see Mr. Ferguson, who was responsible for the show called The Big Beat, which was a dance party kind of show. Well, I saw him and it was more or less, we're very happy with the hostesses on right now. Lamar Ricky is doing a great job. So really, don't call us, we'll call you. Well, I wasn't going to let it stand at that because I am known for my persistence, for sure. So I then decided to find ways to make him remember me. So for, let's say the 4th of July, I sent him a watermelon. Don't forget me if you ever need a replacement for Lamar Ricky. And then, Halloween came along and I sent him a pumpkin. Don't forget me, in case you need a replacement for Lamar Ricky. And then Thanksgiving, I sent him a little toy turkey. Same old message. Don't forget me. I'm ready. I'm eager. I'm able. And then Christmas, a little Christmas tree. I kept it up. Valentine's, Easter baskets, etc., etc. Well, lo and behold, Hollywood called for Lamar Ricky. So she did go to Hollywood. So they interviewed about 100 women, and I was that woman. That's how I got my TV show, through persistence, I guess, and ability.
Yes, and for our audience, persistence can really make a difference, and obviously hard work. And Tina, I think today, if you were sending gifts like that, well, I'm not sure it would fly, but that was a different time. And you were on TV for about a year, is that correct? And then you started a radio show. 2 years.
2 years. Mm-hmm. And then I was hired by Sam Phillips. He's the one that, he discovered Elvis, Hal Ingworth, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, a whole bunch of people. And I like to say he discovered me too, because he owned the nation's first all girls, and it was called All Girls radio show, WHER. It was a total female staff. And I had the weekend shift.
Nice. And for our audience, we are with Tina Flaherty, and she's talking about her very beginnings as a TV host and then a radio host. Now, Tina, you also were named a power chick back in, I think, the 1990s, and Hillary Clinton was a power chick, as well as Oprah Winfrey, and many other women, or a few other women. And what exactly was a power chick, and what is a power chick as we would know of it today?
Well, a power chick was simply the name that he gave us. And we didn't call ourselves that, that's for sure. But it's a woman who's at the top of her game. She knows who she is, where she wants to go, and how to get there. Well, I think I was included in the book, Power Chicks, because of where I was in terms of my corporate life. I was the first woman elected at Colgate-Palmolive. as a corporate officer and as a corporate vice president reporting to the CEO. There were only 4 other women like me in America that held a similar position. So I think that's one of the reasons he selected me. And of course, he also selected Oprah Winfrey and Hillary Rodham Clinton and other women.
And with that title, you've managed to do quite a bit. I understand you've written 4 different books. Now, one of the books that really intrigued me was the book with the title, Talking Your Way to the Top. Now, how does someone talk their way to the top?
Well, it has a lot to do with style. For example, Bill Clinton talked his way to the top, and he's able to connect with an audience. You have to be able to connect when you speak, whether it's turning your head around, but you have to have a certain amount of enthusiasm, and you have to believe in what you're saying. And also, you should never just use banal language anytime that you can create a picture, whether you're naming a barn or whatever it is, but you give people, you give them words that they can hook on to. So that's all part of talking your way to the top. Also, you just can't stare weakly ahead. You've got to take it, if you're in front of an audience, you've got to look to the left, you've got to look to the right, you've got to look in the center. You've got to let them know that you are with them.
Well, Tina, that's a fascinating title. And honestly, I can't wait to read that book. But I like your answers about having a little charm, to be able to tell a little bit of a story. Of course, you're not going to make up fake stories, but to have a little interest and to be a good talker, because I think it really helps with someone's success. And of course, you need to be smart, intelligent, honest, and you have to want to get to the top. So, very interesting book. And now I think you're most famous for the book you wrote about Jacqueline Kennedy. And for our viewers, we are with Tina Flaherty, and she is an author, businesswoman. She's a former TV host, radio host, and philanthropist. Now, Tina, you lived in the same building as Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy, correct?
Correct.
And then you decided to write a book.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. And it was a very flattering book.
It was.
Yes. And tell us what a beautiful cover. And tell us a little bit about that book.
Well, this book is entirely praiseworthy of Jackie, and that was the intent of it. All my life, I've believed that Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis has never received the credit that she has for her brains. There's still a disconnect among a lot of people between beauty and brains, like you can't have them both, but she had them both. So that was sort of my intent as well. But I meant for my book to be praiseworthy. And I took it from all the attributes that Jackie had, from self-awareness to persistence, motherhood, whatever. But she succeeded in all areas of her life, in my opinion.
Yes, and I remember when I was younger reading just about everything I could about Jacqueline Kennedy. I'm a huge Kennedy fan, and I always adored Jacqueline Kennedy. My mom adored her, and I think my daughters even adore her. Of course, they're young, but the whole family is a fascinating story. And Jackie was a very smart woman, also a very stylish woman. And of course, she was in the media all the time. So I haven't yet read your book, but it's on my list of books to buy. I know it's available on Amazon, and it was really a great sensation when it was published. And then you wrote 2 other books. And if you want, we can speak a little bit about them, because I think anyone who writes books, well, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of research, also a lot of intelligence. And as an author has something to say. Now, for our audience, I wrote a book, It's called Successful Philanthropy: How to Make a Life by What You Give. And this is designed to encourage people to become philanthropists. In the book, I say, if you don't have the financial resources, you give your time and your knowledge, and you can become a philanthropist. But this show is not about me. It's about Tina. And Tina is a wonderfully fascinating, very intelligent woman and a real icon. So, Tina, the other two books, we'd love to hear about them.
Well, I'd like to mention one thing about Jackie that most people don't realize. Jackie was 50% Irish and only 12% French. So whatever your last name is, that's usually what people think of you as. And her last name was Bouvier, but her mother's ancestors came over from County Cork. So she was perfect for Jack Kennedy because his ancestors came over from County Cork and he was Irish too. But most people don't also realize that Jackie was very persistent, and it was kind of like it's my way or the highway. There's a famous story how she wanted a sterling silver centerpiece from the Met Museum. So she went to James Biddle, who was the assistant curator in the American wing, and asked him for it. And he said no once, he said no twice. Then he went on vacation. Jackie grabbed it and she says, "Darling Jimmy, I've got it." And she added another phrase that I won't repeat. and this is a true story. So Jackie wanted things her way, and she found a way to do it. The other thing they don't realize is that Jackie was an alpha woman. She was just in mufti. It was all sort of hidden in a very ladylike package. You know, she spoke softly and so on. But the real Jackie was a very, very strong woman. Her mother was very strong, you know, so her mother was a role model.
Yes, and you mentioned you lived in the same building, 1040 Fifth Avenue. Did you meet Jackie? Was she a friend of yours, or did you just write the book based on research?
Well, if you're a friend of Jackie's and you write a book, you're no longer a friend. But I was not a friend. I would just get sort of a nod and smile acquaintance. I mean, I never would dream of going up to her and talking to her because I respected her privacy. You know how New Yorkers are. I once spent 2 hours at a museum, not a museum, an antique store with Paul Newman, and I didn't even say hello. So we respect privacy in New York.
You would think, but a lot of people, well, they run up to celebrities and introduce themselves. And then today people pull out their iPhones and take pictures and selfies and all sorts of things. And many celebrities like that. What about her children? Did you meet her children?
Well, I did. One winter, very cold, I was coming in the lobby with my dog, Liam, a yellow lab. And the hunk, as they called him, started coming over, looking like he wanted to talk to me. And I said, well, okay. So he said, "Excuse me, may I speak to you?" Of course, you may speak to me. And he says, "What's it like to have a dog in a New York City apartment? Do you think it's fair?" And I wanted to buy him a drink and talk about it a long time, but I answered his question. Just kidding there. But anyway, I said, of course it's fair because dogs just want to be where you are. And he saw him thinking of, adopting a dog, and he did. He adopted Sam, who was a shepherd. So I just had a dog relationship with John F. Kennedy Jr.
Yes, and John Jr., as in John Jr. Kennedy, you're right, the women all loved him, and even the men loved him. And what a great tragedy when he passed. I had no idea that he loved animals, and that just makes me like him even more. Now, you have the two other books that we started, well, I asked you about. I haven't heard about them yet. And briefly, what were they about?
Well, the other one was the Savvy Woman's Success Bible, how to find the right job, the right man, and the right life. And it was more or less, it encountered all phases of a woman's life. And for example, it told them how to do a proper resume, and then and how to find the right man. One of my pieces of advice: never date a man whose hips are bigger than yours, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was kind of a funny book in parts too. People loved it. and in the right life. I talked about getting on the Great Life Express and, and finding happiness in your way. It was a very popular book. Even the New York Times liked it.
Well, that's a big tribute. If the New York Times likes you and they like your books, well, you've made it. And then I would say a book like that would be of interest not only to women but to men, because men want to know what women are all about. And if they read a book like this, well, they'll learn a lot. And the fourth book.
Well, I had two versions of the Jackie book. That's the four books, and I came out in 2014 with a commemorative edition. And that edition had 14 original essays from some of the top people around the world: the Met Museum, the Churchill Archives, the Morgan Library and Museum, people and very respected authors as well. Andrew Roberts, who wrote the great book on Churchill, the recent one, Walking with Destiny. But it enhanced the book and made it all the better, their essays.
Yes. And now, Tina, when I think of you, I think of New York icons. You've lived in New York all your life. You've certainly contributed to the city, not just by being a resident, by being a great author. And you're also a wonderful philanthropist. And when I read your bio, and I learned that you're on the board of the Animal Medical Center, and you actually have a division of the Animal Medical Center named after you. And are you a big animal lover? And is that why you got involved with the Animal Medical Center? Or
it is. That's the reason I got involved. And I don't know how much you know about it, Jean, but it's open 24/7. So if you've got a sick puppy or a sick dog, I mean, it's such a relief to have some place to go. But it is the largest nonprofit animal hospital in the world. Many people call it the Mayo Clinic for animals. It's a wonderful institution. I've always been interested in rehab. I was exposed to it in California first at one of the great universities there, and I knew what could be done, but we didn't have a rehab center. This is way back when, at the Animal Medical Center. And I tried for it for 10 years, and I kept bringing it up. And for one reason or the other, it was postponed. But, every now and then you have to speak with passion. And once I spoke with passion, then they said, well, we will consider it. And then I helped fund it, to say the least.
And that's really wonderful. And for our audience, we are with Tina Flaherty. She is an author. She is a businesswoman, philanthropist, former TV host, and radio host. And she's just spoken about her involvement with the Animal Medical Center. And you know that I love animals. In my home, we have 5 rescue dogs. They brought us so much love. And I have been to the Animal Medical Center a number of times. Sometimes I've actually been there with friends' dogs, and it's a very nice experience. It's definitely very cutting edge. And if you have a sick dog and you don't know what's wrong with the dog, well, that's the perfect place to go. It's located in New York, and they do a great job. I've also been to a number of their fundraisers. They do a beautiful party at the end of the year, every year. Usually that's at Cipriani 42nd.
It will be this year. It will be this year too.
Yes, and it's an ultra who's who of New York who attends this party, as I recall it. And it's for a really wonderful cause, our furry friends. And as Tina said, it's very, very cutting edge. And if they can't solve your dog's problem or your cat's problem, well, nobody can.
Let me say one thing, Jean, that a lot of people don't realize. The Animal Medical Center has vets who are board certified. People somehow think that all vets are equal. Well, it depends. It's just like all people, it depends upon their education in the job. Well, if you are board certified, it means you not only went through vet school, but you went 3 or 4 years beyond that. So most vets, if they can't solve a problem, they will send it the dog or the cat or whatever animal to the animal medical center, and having a board certified physician work on your dog or cat or parakeet or whatever else you have, can make the difference between life and death, because their knowledge base is higher.
Yes, I've always considered the Animal Medical Center in New York City to be the premier institution to take care of animals, sick animals, of course. And then their research is very cutting edge. And I guess you've been a major funder of their research by creating a research center there, Tina. And I want to thank you for that, because part of life is we can achieve a lot, but what do we do after that? What have we given back to this world? And it's so nice to have Tina Flaherty on the show and to hear not only about her achievements, but about her philanthropy, because this show is about philanthropy. Tina, you've done many other good works as a philanthropist. If you want, talk about it, or we can just jump on to the next topic, but I'd love to hear more about your philanthropy. And I think our audience would too, because this will motivate all of us to want to do more.
I just wanted to say one thing about what the Rehabilitation Center, the Tina Flaherty Rehabilitation Center does. There have been instances of dogs hit by cars who could no longer walk, that other doctors in the city, other vets just gave up on them. And they've been brought to the rehab center and they were able to walk again. And so there's miracles that go on in the rehab center. It's headed up by Dr. Laney Alvarez, who's very, very knowledgeable. But my other thrust in philanthropy is, there's lots of different thrusts, but two main thrusts are the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation. There I funded the exhibit on Embracing Liberty, which embraces, in particular, Franklin D. Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, my hero. And also, I'm very involved with the Irish Repertory Theater. I gave them all of these stained glass windows that are at the theater. And Kieran O'Reilly, the co-founder of it, along with Charlotte Moore, joked that, it takes most saints 300 years to get their name on the stained glass window. Tina did it in a year. So, but I'm very proud of working, with the Irish Repertory Theater as a board member. Also, I have funded various lecture series at Hunter College. And I love Hunter College and the way they embrace learning. And I funded the Tina Flaherty Winston Churchill lecture series, which went over very well. At first, they were reluctant, and then the president of Hunter College said, "Never have I been so wrong about something that was so right." And every lecture that we had, it was just filled to the brim. So that's been a real pleasure.
Tina, I love all that you've done in the way of philanthropy. Now, when you look back on everything you've done, what are you most proud of?
I would have to say that it's the work I've done with the Animal Medical Center. I've been on the board for 38 years, but to see, these sweet animals who are so innocent, be either recklessly run over or whatever, and to be able to help them, bring them back to a better life is really rewarding. So I'm very proud of the Animal Medical Center and the work that we do, particularly in the rehab center. So I'm very proud of that. But I do like spreading education. So I very much like working with Hunter College on the lecture series for Winston Churchill. But I also I sponsored another one called Irish Voices, and I brought along some of the top people, including someone that you're going to interview, I understand, Carrie Kennedy, to tell us about their Irish roots and talk about success and life, etc. So I like doing things that are creative, and I don't get involved in anything unless I can play a part. I don't just dump some money. I mean, if I can't get in, I have to get involved, because essentially at heart, I think of myself as a creative person, but getting involved inspires me, and then I want to make things better and better. So it's kind of a little bit of what I've done. I've done a lot of other things. I funded the Oscar Wilde House in Dublin, Ireland. The list is kind of long, but it's always my pleasure to help where I think I can make a difference. I want to make a difference. I don't want to just throw money down a black hole, so to speak.
Yes, and for our audience, when you give, you find it so rewarding. And of course, anytime that you can make a difference in the lives of other people or animals or the environment, well, it makes you feel especially good. And Tina, we have about 30 seconds left. What advice do you give to young people watching this show?
Well, the advice I would give to anyone that is ambitious and wants to move up the ladder is be very self-aware. You have to know your strengths and you have to know your weaknesses. You avoid your weaknesses and you go with your strengths. I would also tell them, success in life has a lot to do with your work ethic. You can't go around saying, "Oh, that's not part of my job," and phrases like that. You've got to work hard at what you're asked to do. I would also tell them, taking a page out of my own book, is to be very persistent. Don't give up, because maybe 10 people will say no, but the 11th one might say yes. So persistence really is omnipotent in life. There's great quotes about that nothing in the world can take the place of persistent. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not, because the world is full of educated derelicts. It's persistence and determination that will bring success. That's a quote I'm reading.
And that is very good advice. And it reminds me of some of the people I know who've gone out looking for jobs, and maybe they go on 10 interviews, and the last interview is the one that gets them the job. So that's all about persistence.
Thank you, Jean.
And thank you, Tina. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Tina Flaherty. Tina is a former TV host, a radio host. She's a businesswoman, author, and philanthropist. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host. I'll see you next week.